Winter break had finally come, and all we wanted was freedom. No school, no deadlines. Just the six of us, Ryan, Josh, Mark, Emily, Sarah, and Chloe, heading into the mountains with snowboards strapped to our backs and laughter spilling out into the frozen air. The resort was packed, crowded with tourists and buzzing with life. But that wasn't enough for us. Ryan wanted adventure, Chloe wanted a thrill, and Josh never said no to a dare. That's how we found ourselves standing at the edge of the old trail. Locals called it the Widow's Run. No one had ridden it in years. The lift that once carried skiers up the slope was rusted and broken. The warning sign, half buried in snow, leaned crooked in the wind. Closed. Danger. Emily's voice trembled when she read it. Maybe we shouldn't. But Ryan laughed. It's just snow. What's the worst that could happen? The trees loomed taller here, heavy with frost, their branches bowing low like claws. The sky was sinking into gray, the last light of day bleeding away behind the peaks. We strapped in, adrenaline masking the unease curling in our stomachs. And as we pushed off, carving down the untouched slope, the mountain exhaled, a low, hollow sound, like the earth itself groaning beneath us. The snow wasn't soft here. It whispered. Every turn sent up a spray of powder that hissed against our ears, almost forming words. By the time we reached the tree line, I could swear the mountain was speaking. And it wasn't welcoming us. It was warning us. At first, the run felt thrilling. The snow was deep, the trees flying past in a blur as our boards carved sharp lines into the untouched slope. We whooped, laughed, screamed with joy. But joy fades fast when the sun goes down in the mountains. By the time we reached the bottom of the trail, the sky had turned black. No sunset, just black. The forest closed in around us, tall pines pressing so close together that the wind couldn't reach inside. We stopped, boards sinking into the drifts. Where's the resort? Emily asked, her voice too sharp, too loud. Ryan spun in a circle, breathing hard. It should be right here. The maps showed. But there was no lodge, no lights, no trail back, only trees, endless trees. Mark pulled out his phone. No signal, just static, his battery draining with every attempt. That's when Sarah said it. Soft, barely above a whisper. The trees, they moved. We laughed at first, nervous, shaky laughs. But when we looked around, none of us could deny it. The trunks weren't where they had been. The paths we thought we saw twisted away, folding into each other like a maze closing shut. The forest didn't want us to leave. It was swallowing us whole. Somewhere behind us, snow crunched, a single step. But when we turned, there was nothing. Only darkness. And the whisper of branches shifting in the windless night. Snow fell heavier now, swallowing the last traces of the trail. Every breath burned in our throats, sharp and icy, like inhaling knives. We can't just stand here, Chloe said, her lips blue, her teeth chattering. We'll freeze. That's when we saw it, a shape in the distance, small, wooden, half buried in drifts. A cabin, Ryan whispered, relief flooding his voice. He charged forward, stumbling through the snow, the rest of us close behind. Up close, it didn't feel like salvation. The cabin leaned sideways, as though the forest itself was trying to swallow it whole. Its windows were boarded up, the wood warped with age. No smoke, no lights, just dead silence. We forced the door open, hinges shrieking. Inside was worse. The air was colder than outside, stagnant, suffocating. Dust coated everything. A single table stood in the middle, its surface carved with deep grooves, almost like scratch marks. On the shelf above, we found it, an old oil lamp, its glass blackened, its base crusted with rust. Emily's hands shook as she lit the wick. The flame sputtered, then caught, casting a dim yellow glow. The shadows stretched across the walls, long, distorted, too long. When Sarah moved her hand, her shadow didn't move with it. The flame trembled, throwing weak golden light against the cabin walls. For a moment we felt safer, huddled together around that tiny glow, like children hiding from the dark. But safety doesn't last long in a place that doesn't want you there. The flame bent, not flickered, bent, as though something was breathing on it from above. Emily cupped her hand around the glass. "There's no draft," she whispered. She was right. The air was still, stifling. Yet the flame curved sideways, stretched thin, as if it was being pulled. Our eyes followed where it pointed, the corner of the cabin. Dark. Too dark. Ryan lifted his flashlight, hands shaking. The beam cut across the floorboards and landed on scratches carved deep into the wood. Letters. Words. Written over and over again, in a frantic, desperate hand. "Don't light it." Chloe stumbled back, bumping into the table. The lamp rattled, the flame sputtered high, and the shadows on the walls shuddered violently. That's when Sarah screamed. Her shadow wasn't hers anymore. It stood taller, arms longer, its head bent at a crooked angle, twitching in the lamplight. And when she stepped forward, the shadow stayed behind. Grinning, the cabin was suffocating. The air inside pressed heavy on our lungs, the shadows too close. We needed fire, wood, an excuse to leave, even if only for a moment. "I'll go," Ryan said quickly. Chloe grabbed her coat. "I'll come with you." The door moaned as they pushed it open. A wave of night air rushed in, colder than it should have been, sharp enough to sting our skin. Their footsteps crunched into the snow, fading as the door slammed shut behind them. Silence. Then the wind howled. Long, low, like a voice stretched across the mountains. Outside, Ryan and Chloe trudged toward the tree line, their breath fogged in front of them, white clouds that vanished too quickly. The forest loomed higher, branches clawing at the sky. Ryan spotted a fallen log, half buried in snow. "There," he muttered. He bent to break off a branch, and froze. Next to his boot, half pressed into the snow, was a footprint. Not his, not Chloe's. It was long, thin, almost human, but with clawed toes that dug deep grooves into the ice. Chloe's flashlight beam shook as she raised it. The prints weren't random. They followed theirs. Every step they had taken, mirrored. "Ryan," her voice cracked. "We're not alone." The woods answered. Somewhere between the trees, snow shifted. A figure stood there. Tall, thin, its arms too long, dangling almost to the ground, its face lost in shadow. And then it moved, not walking, not running, sliding, straight toward them. Chloe's breath caught in her throat as the figure slid closer, its body barely disturbing the snow. She gripped Ryan's arm so hard her nails dug into his jacket. "Back to the cabin," Ryan whispered. "Now." They stumbled backward, trying not to run, trying not to scream. The snow groaned under their boots, each step echoing in the silence. And then, the crunch behind them. Footsteps. Ryan spun his light. Nothing, just trees swaying under their own weight. But the prints weren't theirs anymore. All around them the snow was marked. Dozens of elongated footprints, circling, weaving, overlapping, as if many of those things had been here long before they arrived. Chloe's flashlight beam caught one close to her boot. The snow in the print was fresh, still sinking. Something had just stepped there. She whimpered, and the sound echoed far too loud, too eager. From the tree line came a whisper, low and raspy, repeating in a strange rhythm. Step, step, step. Ryan grabbed her hand. "Don't listen. Just move." They turned and froze. Ahead, in the untouched snow leading back to the cabin, more prints had appeared, perfectly aligned, a trail waiting for them. Chloe's voice cracked. It knows where we're going. The forest around them shuddered. Branches creaked, though there was no wind, and for a heartbeat the trees themselves seemed to lean closer, as if bending down to watch. From behind, the crunch came again. But this time it wasn't footsteps. It was the sound of something dragging its nails through the snow. Inside the cabin, the others huddled close around the weak glow of the oil lamp. The flame guttered and stretched, shadows writhing across the walls like worms. Emily pressed her hands over her ears. "Do you hear that?" At first, we thought it was just the wind, but the forest was still, silent. No wind had howled for hours. The sound came again, not from outside, from everywhere. Whispers. Low, hissing, 100 voices all at once, layered over each other like a broken radio. The words were warped, but we understood them. "Don't leave the fire. It's watching. 6 must stay." Sarah clutched her coat tighter, rocking on her heels. "It knows how many we are." The voices swelled, filling the cabin, pressing against our skulls until my teeth ached. Some of them were our voices. I heard my own whisper, repeating from the walls, distorted and hollow. "You won't get out." Emily sobbed. Mark grabbed the lamp, as if holding it closer would drive the voices back. That's when the whispers stopped. Total silence, and in that silence, from the window behind us, came a single voice, clear, close. "Let us in." We turned. The frost on the glass had melted in the shape of 6 faces, all of them smiling. The faces on the frost lingered, smiling, until the lamp flickered. When the flame stretched tall, they melted away, leaving only dripping trails of water. For a moment, we thought it was over. Then came the knock. 3 dull thuds against the wood. Slow, measured, like someone knocking on a coffin. We froze. No one moved. No one breathed. Another 3 thuds followed, louder this time. The door shivered in its frame, dust raining down from the beams above. Ryan whispered, "It's the others. It has to be. They're back." But Chloe and Ryan were still outside. We hadn't heard them return, and the sound wasn't coming from the door they had left through. It was from the back wall. The knock spread, crawling along the cabin walls, circling us. One side, then another, then behind us. As though many fists were pounding from every angle, trying to find a way in. Emily clamped her hands over her mouth, trying not to scream. Mark gripped the lamp so tight the glass cracked. Then it stopped. Dead silence. I almost let out a breath until I noticed the nails. Long, black, curved nails pushing through the wood. Scraping down, carving deep grooves, leaving trails that smoked and bled as if the wood itself was alive. And then a voice came, low and hoarse, from right against the door. "One of you. Open." The cabin was silent again, but the silence pressed harder than the knocking. We sat frozen, every creak of the old wood echoing like gunfire in the stillness. Then Sarah moved. Her breath puffed out white in the cold as she crept toward the window. Frost coated the glass thickly, swirling patterns like veins, like arteries. "Don't," Emily whispered. But Sarah's hand was already on the pane, her sleeve wiping away the frost. What she uncovered made my blood run cold. A face, not outside the window, inside the glass. Its skin was pale, almost transparent, veins like black cracks spreading under the surface. Its mouth was too wide, pulled into a grin that showed every tooth, teeth far too many to belong to a human. But the eyes. God, the eyes. They weren't eyes at all. Just black voids, bottomless, swirling faintly as if something was moving inside them. Sarah staggered back, choking on a scream, the face pressed closer. Frost spread outward from its skin, racing across the glass, cracking it like ice on a lake. And then its mouth moved, not opening, not speaking, just stretching wider and wider until the jaw split. A sound came from the glass, not a scream. Worse, it was laughter, cold, childlike, endless. The lamp flickered, and for a split second there were 6 faces in the window, all of them wearing our smiles. The laughter cut off, not faded, not weakened. It stopped in an instant, like a blade severing sound. Silence poured into the cabin, not ordinary silence, heavier, thicker, a silence that rang in our skulls, pressing against our eardrums until they ached. We didn't dare move, didn't dare breathe. The lamp sputtered, its weak flame twitching like it wanted to die. Shadows froze mid-stretch on the walls, unnatural angles frozen in place. Then came the sound we'd been dreading. Not from outside, from the corner of the room. A breath, long, slow, wet. We all turned, our flashlights shaking, beams cutting across the dust and smoke. The corner was empty. Just rotting boards, the edge of the table, the cracks in the wall. Then another breath came, closer, right beside us. Emily dropped her light. The beam spun across the floor and caught something for just a fraction of a second. A foot, bare, pale, standing in the middle of the cabin. But none of us were barefoot. The silence split wide open. And from that empty air, 6 voices whispered all at once, in perfect unison. We're already inside. The lamp flared, as if something invisible had blown on it, and for an instant the shadows on the walls rippled like water. Then came a sound from above, not the wind, not branches, a faint scratching across the roof. We all froze, heads tilted upward, listening. The noise spread, crawling from one end of the cabin to the other, like claws dragging through snow. Then it happened. Something began to fall through the cracks in the ceiling. At first we thought it was snow. White flakes drifted down, soft and silent. But when they hit the table, the truth froze our blood. They weren't flakes. They were fingers. Small, gray, childlike, each one stiff with frost, nails cracked, skin peeling. They tumbled onto the wood with soft thuds, scattering across the floor, twitching as if still alive. Sarah shrieked, kicking them away, but more poured down. Dozens, then hundreds. A storm of severed hands raining into the cabin, bouncing off our shoulders, tangling in our hair. Chloe clawed at her coat, sobbing, "Get them off! Get them off!" The lamp sputtered, and in its flicker, I saw the hands weren't random. They crawled, fingers flexing, palms dragging across the wood, as if searching. And then I noticed it. They weren't trying to reach us. They were trying to smother the flame. One by one, icy hands dragged themselves toward the lamp, piling on, clawing, desperate to kill the light. The whispers rose again, shrill and hungry. "When the fire dies, you're ours." The hands smothered the lamp, piling over it like insects. The flame sputtered, strangled beneath gray, twitching flesh. The cabin plunged into a dim half-light, shadows stretching too far, bending at wrong angles. That's when Josh screamed. We spun around, but he was already gone. His chair still rocked where he had been sitting. His coat hung on the backrest. His boots stood by the fire, steam still curling from the melted snow. But Josh himself wasn't there. "Josh," Emily whispered, her voice cracking. She rushed to the chair, clutching his coat, as if he might still be inside it. It was warm, still warm. Then we saw it. The floor beneath the chair was wet. Not blood, not melted snow, a trail. It led across the boards, glistening faintly in the dying lamplight. Drops of water, dragging lines, like something had pulled him across the room. The trail ended at the far wall. But there was no hole, no door, no exit, just wood. Sarah pressed her hand against the wall. It was damp, cold. And when she leaned closer, she swore she heard something. Josh's voice, faint, muffled, pleading. "Help! I'm stuck! It's dark! Please!" We pressed our ears to the boards, and all at once the wood shuddered under our hands, as if something enormous was breathing on the other side. Then Josh's voice screamed, cut short, swallowed whole. The wall went still, and where his trail had ended, new words appeared in the frost crawling across the planks. 5 left. The cabin felt smaller now. The air was heavy, pressing down on our chests, making it hard to breathe. We kept staring at the place where Josh had vanished, half expecting him to claw his way back through the wood. But nothing moved. Then Mark noticed it. A small cupboard built into the wall. The wood around the handle was scratched, as if someone had clawed at it with bloody nails. Inside, buried beneath rotting cloth and broken glass, we found a book. A leather diary, cracked and stiff with age. Its cover was blackened, as if it had been burned but refused to turn to ash. Emily opened it with trembling hands. The pages were warped, stained, many torn or stuck together. The handwriting inside was frantic, jagged, written by someone who hadn't slept in days. We leaned closer, the lamp trembling in Mark's grip. The first entry read, "We came here by mistake. There were 6 of us, just like now. The storm forced us into the cabin. We thought it was shelter. It wasn't. The next page. It doesn't let you leave. It counts you. Always 6. It takes 1 at a time until none are left. The hands come for the fire. Don't let it die. When the flame dies, it chooses." The ink on the last pages was smeared with what looked like blood. We tried to run. 1 was pulled into the wall, another through the roof. The rest, I can still hear them. It laughs when we scream. It wears our faces. If anyone finds this, burn the cabin. Don't stay. Don't let it count you. Emily dropped the book, her hands shaking violently. And then we saw it. On the very last page, scratched into the leather itself. 6 names, not old names. Our names. We stared at the diary in stunned silence. The lamp hissed, shadows twitching like nervous insects. My skin crawled as if invisible fingers traced my spine. Then Mark gasped. His light had caught the window. They were back. The figures stood in the tree line, just beyond the snow. Tall, dark, perfectly still. But this time, something was different. Emily whispered, "Oh my God, they look like us." And she was right. There were 6 of them. 6 shadows. Each one matching us exactly. Our heights, our stances, even the way we held ourselves. I saw my own outline, shoulders hunched, trembling. Sarah's braid, swaying in the dark. Mark's broad frame. They weren't just shadows. They were copies. Ryan stumbled back, shaking his head. No, that's not possible." But outside, the copies moved. One raised its arm, slowly, mechanical. And through the glass, I watched my own double lift its hand, in perfect sync with me. I froze, too terrified to breathe. Then the doubles began to smile, too wide, too slow, teeth glinting unnaturally white in the blackness. Chloe screamed, covering her face, but her shadow double outside didn't. It only tilted its head, grinning wider, pressing a pale hand against the frost of the window. A cracking sound split the silence. The glass bulged inward. The copies were trying to come inside. The glass cracked like bones splintering. Long fractures spread across the window, white veins racing outward until the entire pane quivered like thin ice on a lake. Emily screamed, Don't let them in." She tried to push the table against the window, but the wood shook violently under her hands, as if something was pounding from both sides at once. The lamp sputtered, shadows writhing across the walls like snakes. The copies outside pressed closer. 6 pale faces, 6 pairs of black voids for eyes. 6 grins stretched wider than human skin should allow. Then the first hand pushed through. It didn't break the glass. It slid through it, as though the barrier wasn't real. Fingers pale and dripping with frost clamped onto the inside of the wall. Another hand followed, then another. They were crossing. Sarah collapsed, screaming, "It's us! It's our faces!" Her double grinned at her from the other side of the glass, eyes hollow, smile splitting to the ears. The lamp flared bright, and then died. Darkness swallowed the cabin. In the blackness, the whispers returned. Not outside, not around us, inside us. 100 voices pressed against our skulls, repeating the same words. 6 must stay. 6 must stay. 6 must stay. Mark's flashlight snapped on, a trembling beam cutting across the room, and froze on Ryan. Or what used to be Ryan. His skin sagged, his mouth stretched into an impossible grin, and his eyes were gone, replaced by bottomless pits. He twitched violently, bones cracking, before lunging toward us. Emily shrieked, but her cry was cut off. Her copy stepped through the wall itself, clutching her shoulders with hands like ice, dragging her back screaming into the dark. Chloe tried to run for the door. It didn't open. The wood had melted, the handle twisted into something unrecognizable. The whispers became laughter, cold, childlike, endless. I felt a hand on my neck, freezing, squeezing, and when I turned, I saw my own face smiling back at me. It leaned close, lips against my ear, and whispered the final words I would ever hear. "Now, you are one of us." The cabin groaned. The last scream was swallowed by the dark. And outside in the storm, 6 new figures stood perfectly still, waiting for the next travelers. So tell me, if you were lost in the mountains, and the storm forced you into that cabin, and you saw 6 smiling faces in the frost, would you dare light the lamp, or would you let the dark take you? Comment below if you think you'd survive. Subscribe, because the next story might be about you.